where can we actually pinpoint and say, yes, this was a political trial, a political conviction? Is there any validity to that?
Well, it maybe. I mean, it is actors and especially now, they're very hyper vigilant here in LA, in Hollywood, to protect their voices, their images, anything that looks like them or might feel like them from being used by AI to generate essentially another Scarlett Johansson without the real Scarlett Johansson being paid, compensated.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lawyer Interviews. I'm your host, Jeff Dillon. We have with us Tamar Arminak. Tamar, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Jeff. Good to be here.
It's great having you. Tamar, you're joining us from LA, correct?
Yes, that's right.
And remind
Happy
everyone
LA.
what your practice and specialties are.
So we are civil litigators here at Arminak Law, and we have various specialties, but all inside the courtroom. We're all courtroom attorneys here.
Great. Okay. Well, one courtroom that was very popular these days was not far from me here in New York City. We had former President Donald Trump. He was convicted of 34 counts of a felony for business interference. And it was quite the bombshell.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from you. Just a description. Maybe I didn't say it right because I'm not a litigator, but what exactly did Donald Trump was found guilty of?
Well, falsifying business records. I mean, that's it. That's the most vanilla way we can say it. Essentially, he was found guilty of falsifying business records, a payment that the government claimed was used to pay Stormy Daniels as hush money was instead placed in his business records as payment to his attorneys. Well, Cohen. Uh, I think the new term is the gloat. I don't know if you heard that,
No,
but
what's the
Michael Cohen's the
gloat?
gloat. Well, apparently now they're calling him the gloat, which is the greatest liar of all time, which is it's a catchy term. It's a
Yes.
catchy term. But yes, so essentially he was convicted. That's what he was convicted of. As a felony, it's a wobbler, which means it could be charged and you could be convicted of the same thing as a misdemeanor. But in this case, he was convicted of this crime, falsifying business records, as a felony.
So in what world could this have been just a misdemeanor?
Well, the district attorney's office could have sought for it and brought it just as a misdemeanor, and presented it to the jury as a misdemeanor,
Mm-hmm.
and they elected to instead pursue it as a felony, and that's what he was convicted of. And we know that the punishment is generally different for a misdemeanor and a felony, and depending on the actual crime the person has committed, misdemeanors can get expunged later. They can get sort of taken off your record. A lot of misdemeanors are probation type offenses versus
Right.
felonies, which you don't usually get expunged and taken off record.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, I think even a lay person would realize that felony much more extreme,
Yeah.
much more severe. Now, I think the question, just for everyone's minds, can a convicted felon still run for president?
Absolutely. And I think he is still running for president.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that disqualifies him from doing so.
So we would say the repercussions of this conviction are mostly reputational and will impact the election in that sense, but he's
I
not being
don't
barred.
Yeah, I don't think that it's going to impact the election and that he's going to be barred. I think the Supreme Court has made it clear in their most recent rulings about just taking him off the ballot, that is also inappropriate for states to do on a national election. So I don't think that that's going to affect him there. It seems like from the reports we're getting from the Trump camp, that in fact he's fundraised pretty well in the last several days right after the conviction.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a big deal. So now I want to play a quick game because we're all with you. It's helpful. A lot
Yeah.
of us get into political discussions with our parents, family, friends, people looking at this from different sides, but it's just, we're lawyers. This is the law. let's come at it from different angles, and
Right.
I'll pretend to be your crazy liberal uncle, and then I'll try to be
Yeah.
your crazy Republican uncle. And
Yeah. I
if
have
I'm your
both. Yeah.
that's great. Yeah,
Yeah.
my family has both as well. So if I'm the MAGA uncle, I'm
Yeah.
coming in. This was uh, a farce of a trial, a political witch hunt,
Right.
and the Democratic Party was just coming in. Now, what validity, where can we actually pinpoint and say, yes, this was a political trial, a political conviction? Is there any validity to that?
Well, it maybe. I mean, it is. When I described the charges to you, they didn't seem that severe, falsifying business records. And at the end of the day, I think the argument that the defense made did make sense. This had nothing to do with the election. This had nothing to do really with even Michael Cohen. This was someone saying that they had a relationship on some level with Mr. Trump, who's married, who was trying to protect his children, his wife, and his reputation at that point. And this is something that's very common. In fact, it happens all the time. It happens in civil litigation. You often get a demand letter. I'm going to say this about you unless you pay me X amount of dollars. And a person has a decision to make. Do I pay this pittance, this 120,000 or whatever it was? Um, or do I risk hurting my wife, hurting my family, hurting my standing in the community?
Hmm.
And that's all that it was. And to charge it as a felony, it seems like it was intentional, and it was them pursuing. I don't even think Michael Cohen, who pled guilty to like tax evasion and the taxi cab seal stuff and all, was guilty of 34 felonies. Lied to
Hmm.
Congress, perjury, and all sorts of things. So yeah, it does seem like they really brought a very unrealistic and unreasonable case against Mr. Trump. And I know that the defense continued to harp on the fact that, in fact, he couldn't get a fair trial in Manhattan because of the demographic, because of the political demographic there. And
Okay.
the judge definitely had the option of changing venue to other parts of New York, which may or may not have had a different political venue. So, you
I'll be
know,
the liberal uncle chiming in. Can't hold himself back. So
yeah,
what venue would then be fair? Because I remember back when people were saying the venue should be in West Virginia or in Florida. Would that not just be on the
no.
other side just as unfair?
Sure. And in courts, we don't change the venue to a completely different state. We
Mm,
change it to a different county. For example, the Scott Peterson matter was a very public matter in Modesto, which is a teeny tiny little farming community in California. Because it was so public and so many people knew Scott and Lacey,
right.
they moved it an hour away
Okay.
to
So
a
that's
more.
how it should typically be done. And
Maybe they
now,
would have moved it to Buffalo. I don't know. Is
yeah,
Brooklyn,
I mean,
more
you
appropriate?
could if you brought it to Long Island, that might be
Oh,
worse than West Virginia, to be
yeah.
honest,
Yeah, you're right.
or
There,
better, depending on who you are.
yeah,
Now, on the flip side, if we are consoling our our freaked out MAGA relatives, or we're
yeah,
arguing on the liberal side, or just in general, like this was a normal case where we have a judge, a jury acting impartially.
right.
A crime has occurred,
Yeah.
and Trump committed it. So, what? How can we view this in the more sober sense of what
You know,
happened?
we have to, in this country, we respect the process of the jury. We have to. That's one of our fundamental rights, is a right to a jury of our peers in deciding these types of criminal cases. And once the jury is impaneled, both sides had a chance to question. Both sides had a chance to Google each juror and to find out where they stood. And they weeded out what were a lot of stealth jurors. And in fact, I was shocked that we even had a verdict in this case. I was convinced for the last 5 weeks that there had to have been a stealth juror one way or the other that would have pushed this to a mistrial, because the country is very polarized on this
Yeah.
issue. But by all accounts, the jury was very sober, was very attentive, was very respectful, and was paying attention. And this is the legal system in our country. We need to respect that the jury has made a decision, and we
Hmm.
abide by that decision.
And the action itself was a crime. He falsified the records. He lied, and
And the jury found
and they
so.
and they
They
found
found
so.
so beyond a reasonable doubt unanimously.
Right,
They
which
were
is a
told
99% standard, right? Like this isn't just more likely than not. This is they found it beyond a reasonable doubt.
beyond a reasonable doubt. Yes. So, yes, we have to respect the jury's ruling on this. Yeah.
Well, there are other cases against Trump, but those
Yeah.
have all been delayed to not till after this election.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we'll see if this even stays relevant. Scarlett Johansson and her voice being used for OpenAI's ChatGPT voice service or component. Pretty bizarre stuff. Must be jarring to hear your voice being used in some tool. um yeah, and I don't know what legal ramifications there might be from that.
Yeah, I mean, significant, because as we know, actors protect their name, their likeness. And this was, in fact, a big issue in the most recent Hollywood strikes. We had the writer's strike, but we also had the actor's strike
Mm-hmm.
for several months. And AI was the issue that caused it to be held up for months, in fact. So actors, and especially now, they're very hyper vigilant here in LA, in Hollywood, to protect their voices, their images, anything that looks like them or might feel like them from being used by AI to generate essentially another Scarlett Johansson without the real Scarlett Johansson being paid, compensated, and frankly,
Mm-hmm.
deciding what work she or her name, her likeness appears in. So, yeah, this is a serious issue. This is a big deal right now in Hollywood.
Got it. Yeah. So what seems interesting in the timeline of events is that the CEO of OpenAI actually approached Scarlett and said, we heard your voice in the movie Her, and think you would be a perfect person for this. And I guess they had some kind of negotiations, but eventually it fell through. Then they went ahead, found either another actress who sounded just like her, or somehow was able to use her without their consent, and just proceeded with the voice Sky, that sounds just like her. And when after some complaints, and I guess this got some attention in the press, eventually they dropped using the voice. So my couple questions for you is, if they agreed to stop using the voice, is that kind of showing that you're being guilty? Is that like, what is that, how does that look to people when they see, oh, okay, we stopped doing the thing that everyone's accusing us of doing?
Well, I think that they were smart. They wanted to avoid a lawsuit, a big dragged out
Mm-hmm.
ordeal. And I think that they're being relatively new technology. They want to keep it clean right now and not have any issues starting out. So I think that's what that means. I don't necessarily think it's an admission of guilt. But I think that it's a big warning sign to
Mm-hmm.
other actors and actresses that this is something that can be done at any time. There are so many actors and actresses whose voices are very identifiable. Um, and it's not just voices. I mean, we're now dealing with technology, AI, where it could be Keanu Reeves, and yet it's not. He's
Yeah.
not signed up for this movie. He's not signed up for this commercial, and it looks just like him. And it's something that he would never agree to. And certainly he's not getting paid. He's not getting compensated for it. That could be very distressing for
Mm-hmm.
celebrities, because this is their trade. This is the way they look, the way they sound is important to them.
So
And
if
yeah,
if Scarlett Johansson were to say, and if they didn't drop the voice, let's say, what would be her cause of action against OpenAI?
I would say unauthorized use of likeness. I think likeness is not just the face. likeness could be the voice. You are using me, what is identifiable as me, the voice, without my permission, without compensating me, and becoming unjustly enriched by it, of
Hmm.
selling your product. And I think it would be just the same as if they had generated an AI looking like her and did a commercial or did a movie. I think it would be just the same issue and just the same problem.
I see. And so she would be seeking monetary damages, but then probably also some type of injunction to get them to stop, right?
To get them to stop. And I would think that on her behalf, there would be some sort of amicus brief or something where the actors union would get involved and prevent this company from not only using her voice, Mr. Hansen's, but other actors and other celebrities' voices and likeness in this way.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, to me, I don't see how like this isn't going to go away. We're definitely going to be hearing
No.
about this again. There'll be deep fakes and all
Yeah.
sorts of uses of this and different types of
Yeah.
tech that's going to come out. And I imagine this will be an evolving world
Yeah.
of law.
And there's the other side of it too. During the actor strikes, the union strikes, the studios were saying we're paying some of you 10, 20, 30 million a film. You want the backside, right? So you want to be a producer. And if the film blows up, we're paying you 100 million
Hmm.
sometimes, where you have indefinite rights. And when we can get the same sort of thing with a computer generated actor, in fact, sometimes better, a computer generated image will cry when you ask it to cry, will behave exactly how you want it to behave. We can take that computer generated image and put it in a desert, in the ocean, in an office setting like this. We don't have to cart you around the world and do it
Yeah.
that way. So there, I see two sides of it. I see the studios trying to save money, getting material out quicker. You know, we have streaming services, we have regular to cable. So there's a hunger for new content, new
Oh,
material,
yeah.
and they don't want to pay the actors, and they can't keep up with that.
So if I were an entertainment lawyer and or an agent, and if you wanted to get ahead of this thing, you can
Yeah,
imagine the first contract between some
absolutely.
great voice and an AI, because
Yeah,
I would imagine it could be very lucrative,
right.
and might as well, with your permission and getting paid, than
Yeah,
waiting for, it just, who knows? Like
yeah.
people can, and I wonder how exactly similar something has to sound. Could the voice resemble, I don't know, pick your favorite
Right.
person with a strong voice.
Right.
It kind of sounds like this person and
Yeah.
has some of the same. So
And
uh,
which voices, right? Because, for example,
mhm.
Morgan Freeman's voice may be more recognizable than, I don't know, Kevin Costner's, for example, or so. It's certainly Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice or Sylvester Stallone's voice, very readily recognizable. So we don't have a lot of case law on this yet,
And you have
but
very
I imagine it's
talented, not
coming.
even without AI, you have pretty talented impersonators. So what
Yeah,
if I open AI and I used an
yeah,
Arnold Schwarzenegger impersonator?
yeah.
Like, I don't know. This could be very interesting stuff.
Awesome.
And let's keep an eye on it. All right. Well, thank you, Tamar.
Thank you, Jeff. Talk to you soon.